And now back to our coverage here on India Today. As we mourn the death of the country's top military commander, General Bipin Rawat, his wife Madhulika Rawat and the 11 others who died in yesterday's tragic helicopter accident. In Tamil Nadu earlier today, a wreath-laying ceremony took place at the Madras Regimental Centre in Wellington. Chief Minister Stalin paid tribute to the Chief of Defence Staff and to the 12 others who lost their lives. Locals showered flower petals as the ambulances carrying the mortal remains left from Wellington and arrived at the Sulur Air Base nearby. People in large numbers thronged the Sulur airport gates to pay their last respects to India's bravehearts. People were also heard chanting Bharat Mata Ki Jai. Children waving the tricolour to pay their last respects to India's first Chief of Defence Staff. The cremation of General Rawat and his wife will take place in Delhi cantonment on Friday. People will be allowed to pay their last respects at the Chief of Defence Staff's residence from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. tomorrow.
बिपिन रावत डिफेंस सर्विसेज स्टाफ वाले वेलिंगटन के स्टूडेंट ऑफिसर से इंटरेक्ट करने के लिए अपने एक शेड्यूल्ड विजिट पर थे। एयरफोर्स के Mi-17V5 हेलीकॉप्टर ने कल 11:48 पर सुलूर एयरबेस से अपनी उड़ान भरी, जिसे 12:15 पर वेलिंगटन में लैंड करना था। सुलूर एयरवेज के एयर ट्रैफिक कंट्रोल ने लगभग 12:08 पर हेलीकॉप्टर से अपना कांटेक्ट खो दिया। बाद में कूनूर के पास जंगल में कुछ स्थानीय लोगों ने आग लगी हुई देखी। जब वे भागकर उस स्थान पर पहुंचे तो उन्होंने मिलिट्री हेलीकॉप्टर के अवशेष को आग की लपटों से घिरा हुआ देखा।
India Today's Abhishek Bhalla joining me live from Wellington. Nolan Pinto also joining us live from Bengaluru. Abhishek, the aircraft with the mortal remains of the 13 are on their way. Very tragic information that the military has shared with us, that the positive identification has only happened or only been possible so far with General Rawat, his wife and Brigadier Liddar. The other 10 persons are still being identified because that was the extent of the charring and the damage that they suffered in this accident. We pray that they didn't feel any pain in this horrifying accident, but the Shraddhanjali ceremony is going to be an extensive one, Abhishek, later this evening. They land at 9:40 and from 8:30 onwards, starting with the Defence Secretary and leading up to the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, is the entire ceremony, Abhishek.
Well, Shiv, the flight is expected to land at about 7:30, 7:40, and after that the mortal remains of General Rawat and his wife will be taken to their residence, and that's where people can come in, pay their last respects, their homage to the couple, and of course they have also tomorrow morning before the final rites are conducted in Delhi cantonment when people will be visiting their home. Yes, it's very tragic to know that, other than 3 people, that's General Rawat, his wife, and Brigadier Liddar, who was General Rawat's defense advisor. The others haven't been identified yet, and that's the reason why their mortal remains will continue to be put in the mortuary in Army cantonment. Their families have been talked to about it. It's not an easy moment for the families and also for the people who are in touch with them, trying to explain to them what the situation is. So we can only pray that one group captain, Varun Singh, recovers, and the other that these people who lost their lives, at least their mortal remains can be identified as early as possible for a final closure to their loved ones.
And an incredible outpouring of public grief, not just in the military, but also in the civilian sphere, Abhishek. You saw it in Wellington, we saw it in Sulur, we are now seeing it in cities across the country, from Delhi to Jammu to Ladakh to elsewhere. An incredible outpouring of public grief for the departed general and those on board this helicopter.
Shiv, when the wreath laying ceremony was taking place at Wellington, there were wives of officers who had queued up to pay their tributes. So that showed the kind of impact this has had on the military fraternity. But outside the regimental center, there was a huge crowd as well, and little kids, school students had also gathered. And even when the convoy actually went to Salur, what we heard and saw, the visuals were that people had gathered on the streets to pay their last tributes to everybody. And once again, I'm sure that once the mortal remains are taken to their home, obviously there will be a lot of dignitaries who come to pay their last tributes to General Rawat.
Incredibly sad, but also so inspiring to see the amount of pride galvanized with grief in the way and the manner in which civilians and the military have reacted to this terrible, terrible loss. The Indian Air Force aircraft from Salur is expected to arrive at Delhi's Palam Air Base by 7:40 this evening. So just in about in a very short while from now, they will be landing. In just about 30 minutes and a half an hour from now, the aircraft will be landing. The Shraddhanjali ceremony will begin in under an hour after that. 8:30 p.m. it begins. Prime Minister Modi will be paying his respects at the Palam Air Base in person just after 9 p.m. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, the three service chiefs from the Army, Navy and Air Force will of course also be present. The last rites will be performed on Friday. The cremation ceremony of General and Mrs. Rawat will take place on Friday in Delhi's cantonment with full military honours. People will also be allowed to pay their last respects at the Chief of Defence Staff's residence. Not everybody, not the public at large, but in a controlled manner from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. The sole survivor, as the Shraddhanjali ceremony begins in a short while from now, thoughts and prayers on every Indian's mind will also be with Group Captain Varun Singh. He suffered extensive injuries and is fighting for his life as we speak at the Air Force Command Hospital in Bengaluru. He is the sole survivor of this accident and he is being treated by one of the top-level team of doctors who are fighting to save him. Here's the story of Group Captain Varun Singh. We are all together and praying for him with his family. He was pulled out of the wreckage of the Mi-17 V5 helicopter alive. Group Captain Varun Singh, Shaurya Chakra, the lone survivor of the horrific tragedy. He was breathing but had severe burn injuries and was rushed to the military hospital in Wellington by emergency services. Group Captain Varun, directing staff at the Defence Services Staff College in Wellington, was escorting the Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, and his entourage to the Staff College, where he was to deliver a lecture. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh in Parliament on Thursday gave details of Group Captain Varun's condition.
क्रैश साइट से सर्वाइवर्स को रिकवर करने का भी प्रयास किया। उस अवशेष से जितने भी लोगों को निकाला जा सका, उन सबको यथाशीघ्र वेलिंगटन के मिलिट्री हॉस्पिटल पहुंचाया गया। कुल 14 लोगों में से 13 लोगों की मृत्यु हो गई। ग्रुप कैप्टन वरुण सिंह वेलिंगटन के मिलिट्री हॉस्पिटल में लाइफ सपोर्ट पर हैं और उन्हें बचाने के हर संभव प्रयास किए जा रहे हैं।
Group Captain Varun is a true survivor. He was awarded the nation's third highest gallantry award, the Shaurya Chakra, for his amazing grit, determination and valor. In October 2020, then Wing Commander Varun was test flying a Tejas light combat aircraft on a test sortie. With deft handling of the aircraft, despite the fighter plane pitching wildly, he brought it under control, choosing not to eject, but to land the aircraft, putting his life at grave risk, but saving a valuable national asset and lives on the ground. Group Captain Varun Singh, a fighter pilot, a role model for many, was posted to the Staff College to motivate future commanders. Group Captain Varun is a second-generation officer hailing from Uttar Pradesh. 1 billion prayers are now on for his speedy and complete recovery. Bureau Report, India Today. Let's go across to India Today's Nolan Pinto joining me live from Bengaluru. Nolan, a nation praying for Group Captain Varun Singh. His condition is said to be critical. He is stable, but obviously the need was felt to move him from Wellington to Bengaluru. Nolan, just for a moment, stay with me. We're getting some images. I'll come back to Group Captain Varun Singh in a moment. This is a live image from inside the Palam Air Force Station right now, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to bring you this live image from inside the Palam Air Base in Delhi. You have all these pedestals which are sorrowfully awaiting the load that they will carry. The Tiranga draped caskets of the 13 persons who will be landing in a Special Air Force aircraft in just about 30 minutes from now. This is the hangar inside the Palam Air Base where the Shraddhanjali ceremony will be taking place. You can see many Air Force personnel already assembled there. The families of the 13, including the 2 daughters of General and Mrs. Bipin Rawat, will be on site, as will the families of all of the other personnel who perished in this tragic crash. So these are images from inside the Palam Air Base where the ceremonials will begin at 8:30 p.m. A guard of honor will be accorded. All military honors are being rolled out for Chief of Defence Staff Bipin Rawat and the 12 others, including his wife, Mrs. Madhulika Rawat, who so tragically have lost their lives in an accident, the reality of which is still very much sinking in. I'd like to tell our viewers that this is expected to be an extremely emotional ceremony. All of the families are there. You will see them on camera for the first time. I promise you, on behalf of India Today, that we will be reporting this in a very, very sensitive manner with great regard to the families. They are the ones who face the brunt of this tragedy the most. And we will bring you our coverage of this Shraddhanjali ceremony because it is India that is paying tribute and is standing shoulder to shoulder and side by side with these families as they digest this incredible tragedy. And as they process it, as they grieve for their loved ones, a proud India will be standing with them and telling them that we share their grief. And India Today's reporters on site will be there to demonstrate that we share that grief, and we will continue to tell the stories of these brave hearts. And there's also a reason why the Prime Minister will be leading the Shraddhanjali ceremony. He will be there along with the President, the Defence Minister, several other ministers, the National Security Advisor and others, the service chiefs of course, to lay a wreath, to salute the departed souls and India's first Chief of Defence Staff. All preparations are ready at the Palam Air Base. The Palam Air Base, for those who may not know, is co-located with the Indira Gandhi International Airport. It is the central air base of Delhi. It is where the Air Force has a detachment of helicopters and transport aircraft. The VIP squadron also operates from the Palam Air Base, and it is to this base that special C-130J Super Hercules aircraft with the 13 caskets will be landing in a very short while from now. In fact, just about 30 minutes from now, we're told, is when the aircraft will land. There will be a ceremonial arrival of the caskets into this hangar where you see the cloth-draped tables on which the caskets will be placed for the Shraddhanjali ceremony. Mohit is live with me. Mohit, very, very sad images coming in from inside Palam. Even before the mortal remains have arrived, you know, those 13 tables lined up in a row, you know, with the flower garlands draped across them, waiting for their, the tragic boxes, the caskets that they will carry. Everything is ready, all is prepared. It's going to be a huge VIP Shraddhanjali ceremony. The Prime Minister, the President, the Defence Minister, the Home Minister, all of them will be there for this ceremony. Mohit.
Well, absolutely, Shivan. It's a matter of mourning right now. The entire nation is in mourning right now. It's a sensitive matter, of course, and everybody stands united right now. They want to pay the respects to all those 13 souls who've been lost by India. Today, behind me happens to be the hangar where the Rites ceremony would actually take place. The tributes would be given by none other than the Prime Minister and others dignitary as well. All of them would be here in a short span of time as well. What we're learning to understand is the Defence Secretary would be the first one to come in here, and post that we could see the Raksha Mantri followed by other dignitaries, the Army, the Air Force and the Navy Chief as well. All three would be here. Apart from that, then you could expect to see the Prime Minister here as well. And at 8:30 is when we are expecting all these dignitaries to come in here and start paying their respect. Of course, the Prime Minister is expected to be here by 9 p.m. and of course, this is a sensitive time. This is of course a time when everybody wants to pay their respects. The entire nation is in mourning right now, given the fact that the kind of stature that was held by the CDS, the aura that he carried with himself, and of course that is one of the reasons why you have the Prime Minister himself who would be coming in here and paying his respects. Other than that, what we are learning is that once all these 13 mortal remains have been brought in here, the mortal remains of all the 13 persons have been brought in here, they would be kept here for the dignitaries to pay their last respects, and from here onwards it is likely that they would be once again taken to a military hospital, wherein these mortal remains would be kept overnight, and in the morning it is likely that they would be then taken forward to their residences. And of course the army maintaining and ensuring that the close relatives can at least come here and pay their respects and at least see these souls who've been lost and could come in here and pay their respects as well. From tomorrow onwards is something that the people at large would also be allowed to come out and pay their respects. It is expected that the mortal remains of the CDS and his wife would be kept at their residence in New Delhi, Mohit. And there would be a procession that would also follow from there onwards from their residence to Delhi Cant area. Yes.
Mohit, let's pull out your frame. I want to see what's around you. You're inside the Palam Air Base with the greatest of respect and sensitivity. If you could just show us the preparations that are there around you, because you've managed to get inside there, obviously with Air Force permission. If we can just go full frame to Mohit so we can see what's around him. He's standing right in front of the hangar where the bodies will be brought in a short while from now. Go ahead, Mohit. Take us through what you're seeing.
Well, Shiv, we'll just show you these visuals and we'll try and concentrate on the same. And at the moment, there are certain restrictions there as well, given the fact that the preparations are still being made, and the forces have also asked us to maintain a sort of a distance right now in order to ensure and allow them to prepare, because it's a matter of shock and sensitivity as well. The entire nation is in mourning. They want the preparations to be made, and of course the kind of aura that we were talking about that the CDS really carried speaks for itself. And it wasn't just amongst the senior most dignitaries, but right from the very grassroots level is something that the CDS was known for, and hence you really have all the preparations being made, everything being put into order right now by the forces, and an attempt being made to ensure that when the mortal remains do come in here, people are in a position to pay their respects in the most humble manner. On the other hand, you have all three chiefs also coming in here. You have the Air Force, you have the Army, you have the Navy chiefs who would also be coming in here paying their respects as well. And more importantly, you would also have the Prime Minister coming in here as well. The idea, we saw it from yesterday as well. The Prime Minister had in his tweet also categorically mentioned the kind of strategic importance that CDS held in not just ensuring and the kind of commitment that he had towards the nation, but in ensuring that several key decisions were also made during his tenure as the first CDS as well. So the country is mourning the loss of the first CDS. Of course, we can only assume the kind of situation which the kind of feelings and the emotions which the family members would be going through right now of all those 13 people who've died in this ill-fated unmanned helicopter, but clearly the entire nation stands with them. The entire nation is mourning the loss of these lives. And right now, like I told you, Shiv, and all our viewers as well, we are also maintaining a distance right now because, of course, this is something that have been asked by the forces as well. They want to be prepared. They want to continue with their preparing, because in a very short while from now, it is expected that the aircraft carrying all the mortal remains would be landing here at this very airport. The aircraft would be very close to the hangar itself, and hence these restrictions have been put in place. At 8:30 is when almost all the dignitaries would be here, and henceforth you could expect the ceremony of paying respects to begin from there onwards. So clearly the entire nation in mourning, and clearly being seen here as well, the Prime Minister also coming in here, who would be paying his respects. And once again, going back to the fact that even in the Raksha Mantri's address to both the House and the Parliament, you could really sense that emotion coming in through his statement as well, wherein he was not just telling the August House, but at the same time he was also telling the entire nation as to what really transpired, and how the aircraft lost control, lost complete signaling with the base, and at 2:08 and 12:08, I beg your pardon, and the entire chain of events itself was enough to create that sense of mourning, because CDS,
I hear what you're saying, Mohit, because the truth of what happened is still sinking in. The crash investigation has just begun, and in many ways each of these pictures just comes as another reminder of the unbelievable. It has not sunk in for so many of us. Those who knew General Bipin Rawat and the others on board that helicopter, those who didn't know them, the pain is so widespread across the country, and we're seeing it. This is not something you can just plan. This kind of grief is not something that you can orchestrate or synthesize. This is spontaneous grief that you're seeing, and all of it will come to a head and unify at the Palam Air Base, where this very, very sad, sorrowful image of those 13 tables awaiting those caskets, we're showing you here on India Today. I'm going to take a very short break. We'll be back with our coverage live with Mohit from the Palam Air Base. The families will be there shortly. The aircraft will be landing in just minutes from now. And I promise you that no matter where you are in the country or the world, if you're watching India Today, you will be with us at the Palam Air Base when the mortal remains arrive. Come right back after this break. We've got news just coming in now. Details of the final journey of Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat tomorrow begins at 11 a.m. at his residence, the Chief of Defence Staff's residence in central Delhi. From 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m, civil dignitaries will be permitted to enter the house to pay their last respects. Citizens will be allowed to pay homage from 12:30 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Military personnel will pay homage from 12:30 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. So 11 to 12:30 is for civil dignitaries, and then for military personnel will be a 1 hour between 12:30 p.m. and 1:30 p.m. The final journey of General Bipin Rawat from his residence to the Delhi Cantonment Brar Square crematorium is scheduled to start from his residence at about 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. The cremation will take place of both General Bipin Rawat as well as his wife, Mrs. Madhulika Rawat, at the Brar Square Cantonment crematorium tomorrow after 2 p.m. And as we grieve with these images of the final farewell and the journey of those caskets, I also want to tell you that on top of every citizen's mind today is what happened to that helicopter. How could it have crashed? And today, early in the morning, India Today accessed these images that are also with the crash investigation team, taken by a local on the ground in Coonoor, which capture the final 15 seconds of that ill-fated helicopter. You see the image of that helicopter in the air, disappearing into a blanket of clouds, and then it impacted the mountainside. What do these pictures actually tell us about the accident? And will it play a role in helping us realize the truth about this disastrous accident?
The frightful last moments of the ill-fated chopper carrying Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat, wife Madhulika and 12 defence personnel. Caught on camera by a group of unsuspecting youngsters on ground in the Nilgiris mountains. The chopper can be seen and heard roaring overhead, with no apparent wobble and maintaining what looks like a steady course, but dangerously close to the foliage on the ground, navigating through foggy and misty skies, with apparent bad weather and low cloud cover. The youngsters can be seen stopping on the path, wondering what's going on. The video then catches a loud booming explosion sound in the background as the chopper, now not on camera, crashes into the terrain. Taken aback, the group of young residents are seen exclaiming, "Has it crashed?" The video then abruptly stops, but not before giving some important insight into what exactly went wrong seconds before the fateful mishap. Was it the bad, blinding, misty weather, which often grips these parts of Nilgiris at this time of the season?
The helicopter was definitely flying low because this area, you could see that the entire back area is completely covered in mist. Around 11 o'clock, this whole spot will be covered by mist. And generally, any kind of helicopter sortie that starts from Sulur and coming to Wellington base, they actually, from that crash point, either take a left or a right. On the left side, there is a hill that is almost twice the size of this one, which is completely covered by mist right now. And that's the only way they can go. And on the right side, but generally they prefer the left side. And as we speak, you could see the mist is setting in over there. And this is the most kind of unfortunate part.
Did the weather cause cockpit disorientation, or was it some sudden technical snag? The black box retrieved from the wreckage holds important clues. Bureau Report, India Today.
And we're taking you straight to Delhi's Palam Air Base now, where we're getting the latest images. Just minutes. There are about 8 to 9 minutes to go before that special Indian Air Force aircraft arrives. Mohit, my colleague, is inside the hangar. He'll be joining us in just a moment. This is his camera that's bringing us these pictures of preparations for the Shraddhanjali ceremony. It's going to be a very, very somber ceremony, an extremely sorrowful ceremony. A grieving India joins every military officer and family member who will be inside this hangar in just a few minutes from now as the bodies begin to arrive in that aircraft. They will be placed on a series of tables, and then all of the visitors, including the Prime Minister, the President, the Defence Minister, other dignitaries will be there to lay a wreath and salute the departed souls, led by Chief of the Defence Staff, the country's first Chief of the Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat. So these are live images coming to you from the Palam Air Base. This is where the Shraddhanjali will be kicking off in just a short while from now at 8:30 p.m. All three service chiefs, including the Indian Air Force Chief, Air Chief Marshal Vivek Ram Chaudhary, will also be here to pay their final respects to the departed souls. Remember, as Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat was a tri-service chief. He was the chief of the entire military and in many ways a father figure towards bringing the three services together in an even bigger and synergistic way. And his projects remain incomplete, but the boots that fill his boots will now have to take that very, very difficult, challenging and hurdle-ridden path forward. Brigadier L.S. Lider, who was the military advisor to General Rawat, his last rites will be taking place tomorrow. Lieutenant Colonel Harjinder Singh was the staff officer to General Rawat. his remains and the remains of 10 others have not been positively identified just yet. They will be identified at the Army Hospital in Delhi. That's Wing Commander Prithvi Chauhan, who was the commanding officer of the 109 helicopter unit, the lead pilot of the ill-fated helicopter. He hails from Agra. His family from Agra will also be inside the hangar. Squadron leader Kuldeep Singh is from Jaipur. He was married just a couple of years ago. There's a picture from his wedding day. His wife, his family from Jaipur will also be at this hangar. And they already are there, as a matter of fact, before the mortal remains of their loved ones have arrived. Junior Warrant Officer Das, his family, is also in Delhi. They will also be inside that hangar. And I want to tell you that here in India today, we aren't just telling you the story of General Bipin Rawat. We're telling you the story of every one of the individuals you see on your screen right now, the brave personnel of the armed forces who were on board that helicopter and who also lost their lives along with the Chief of Defence Staff and his wife. Here's the story of the other 11, a story that nobody else will tell you like we do.
उस हेलीकॉप्टर में सवार कुल 14 लोगों में से 13 लोगों की मृत्यु हो गई। आर्म्ड फोर्सेस के अन्य 9 लोग शामिल हैं। उनके नाम हैं विंग कमांडर पृथ्वी सिंह चौहान, स्क्वाड्रन लीडर कुलदीप सिंह, जूनियर वारंट ऑफिसर राणा प्रताप दास, जूनियर वारंट ऑफिसर अरक्कल प्रदीप, हरविंदर सतपाल राय, नायक गुरुसेवक सिंह, नायक जितेंद्र कुमार, लांस नायक विवेक कुमार, लांस नायक बी साई तेजा।
From the topmost military officer to armed forces jawans, India mourns the deaths in the Nilgiris chopper crash. A decorated soldier, caring husband and doting father, brightest and bravest of the officers, words that describe Brigadier Lakhbinder Singh Liddar, military advisor to Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat. The brigadier is survived by his wife Geetika, a school teacher, and a 16-year-old daughter.
32 साल से इकट्ठे रह रहे हैं। उसकी जो पर्सनालिटी थी, हंसमुख, मिलनसार और बहुत ही अच्छे नेचर का था।
Lieutenant Colonel Harjinder Singh belonged to the 11 Gorkha Rifles, the same regiment as General Bipin Rawat. His missions included one at the Siachen Glacier and another on a UN peacekeeping mission. Wing Commander Prithvi Singh Chauhan was the pilot flying the helicopter that crashed. The 42-year-old from Agra was posted at the Indian Air Force Station in Sulur, where he was commanding officer of the 109 helicopter unit. Wing Commander Chauhan is survived by his wife Kamini, a 12-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son.
यादें तो कभी मिट नहीं सकती, क्योंकि उन्होंने इस तरह से उनका नेचर और जिस तरह से उनका मेहनती और वो सारी चीज़ें थी उनके अंदर, जो क्वालिटियाँ थी, वो याद ही करने लायक थी। आप बताएं।
Squadron leader Kuldeep Singh was the co-pilot of the Mi-17 that crashed. His father is a former Navy officer. His family currently lives in Jaipur. Kuldeep Singh had gotten married just 2 years ago.
आज पूरे गांव में शोक की लहर है। कुलदीप राव का व्यक्तित्व बहुत ही शानदार व्यक्तित्व था। एक ईमानदार, कर्तव्यनिष्ठ और समाज सेवी के रूप में उनकी अलग से पहचान थी। भाई कुलदीप राव की शहादत को हम सैल्यूट करते हैं। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
Rana Pratap Das was a junior warrant officer and a native of Talcher in Angul district of Odisha. Rana had completed 12 years in service and was posted in Delhi, where he lived with his wife and son. Arakkal Pradeep, a junior warrant officer, joined the Air Force in 2002 as a weapon fitter and was later selected as part of the air crew. A veteran of anti-Naxal operations in Chhattisgarh and flood rescue missions in Uttarakhand and Kerala, Pradeep was posted at the Sulur Air Force Station. He is survived by his wife and 2 children. Havildar Satpal Rai was the personal security officer of General Bipin Rawat. He was from Darjeeling. Naik Gursevak Singh was a member of Bipin Rawat's security squad. A resident of Punjab's Taran Taran, Gursevak was posted in the 9 Para Special Forces unit of the army. Lance Naik Vivek Kumar was the principal staff officer of General Bipin Rawat from Himachal's Kangra. Vivek was in the J&K Rifles and also served in a para-commando unit, engaged in VIP security. Married only last year, he survived by his wife and a 6-month-old son. Lance Naik B. Sai Teja was a personal security officer of General Rawat, a prestigious posting that he got just 7 months ago. From Andhra's Chittoor, Teja had joined the Indian Army in 2012. He survived by his parents, wife and 2 children, a 3-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter. The family says Lance Naik Sai Teja last spoke to his wife on Wednesday, moments before boarding the helicopter with Chief of Defence Staff Rawat. Naik Jitendra Kumar was from Dhamanda village in Madhya Pradesh. He had completed 8 years in the army and is survived by his wife, a 4-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. These men lost their lives in the line of duty, but will continue to live in the collective memory of a grateful and grieving nation. Bureau Report, India Today. General Bipin Rawat was known for being quite strong-headed. So there were a lot of times when he would rub people the wrong way because he called a spade, but it also won him a country full of admirers. He never shied away from making a bold statement, from calling out Pakistan's hypocrisy in sponsoring terrorism to calling out Chinese territorial aggression to insisting on indigenous construction of weapons and not depending on the foreign lobbies, to in many ways rubbing the entrenched lobbies within the Indian military the wrong way. General Bipin Rawat was a man who called a spade a spade. Here's a report on a few of his strongest statements.
A tall leader, a counter-insurgency expert, and a fiery personality. Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Singh Rawat never minced words when it came to India's hostile neighbours. From the day he took over as the Chief of Army, General Rawat made it known India was capable of countering any threat.
हमारी जो सेना है, हम अमन और शांति चाहते हैं, लेकिन अमन और शांति का मकसद ये नहीं है कि हम कमजोर हैं। हम हर तरफ से काबिल हैं, ताकतवर हैं, और अगर जरूरत आई तो हम किसी भी तरह से ताकत इस्तेमाल करने में पीछे नहीं हटेंगे।
Taking over as the Chief of Army Staff at a time when Chinese incursions were becoming more frequent, General Rawat did not hold back from voicing the Indian Army's decades-old demand for new weaponry.
People who are deeply committed into the conduct of counter-proxy, counter-terrorism, counter-insurgencies are empowered and enabled. The soldier on the ground, the person with the boots on the ground, has to be provided weapons that give him the lethality to take action.
The most testing time for General Rawat was Doklam standoff at India's tri-junction border with Bhutan and China.
Our troops on the border should not feel that it cannot happen again or it cannot happen in another sector again. So what I was trying to say is that it is always better to remain prepared and alert than think that these things will not happen. So my message to my people is that remain prepared, it can happen again.
The incident solidified General Rawat's belief that China and not Pakistan was India's biggest security threat in the region. Something he reiterated during his stint as India's first Chief of Defence Staff.
We have our border management protocols which have been signed between us and China right from 1993 onwards, and we have modified the protocols continuously But of late we have been seeing some aggressive actions by the Chinese, but we are capable of handling these in the best suitable way. We have our tri-services, that is the Army, Navy and Air Force, capable of dealing with our threats along our frontiers.
General Rawat called a spade when it came to Pakistan's duplicity on terror.
These surgical strikes were a message that we had communicated, and that if required and if the adversary does not behave, then if we have to continue with these kind of activities and events, we will continue. But there are other ways of doing these things also. It did not take the same form.
He also proclaimed that the influx of Bangladeshi migration was not total arbitrary, but a partial result of Pakistan's proxy warfare.
A planned immigration that is taking place because of our western neighbor. They will always try and ensure that this area is taken over through playing the proxy dimension of warfare. You don't have to confront a stronger nation through conventional operations. So you play a proxy game.
A general who spoke his mind. General Rawat quoted some controversies, but gave the forces a new direction.